All right. Today we're going to talk about the global operations and supply chain management, right? The operations management, production at the international trade, international management. So there's some questions that will always be asked, like where should the production be located? Should it be concentrated in a single country, or should it be just dispersed globally? And this kind of questions like about the differences in like political, economic, cultural, and other factors, right? Other differences that could affect the costs and also increase the values and benefits and some other things. Next question would be the strategic role of foreign production sites. Right? What should be the long-term strategic role of foreign production sites? Should we have one? Should we, like, if factor cost change, like moving production to another more favorable location, or is there failure to maintain operations at a given location, and some questions related to the long-term strategic role of the production sites overseas. And next question would be like, should we own or outsource? So it's like own or buy, like this kind of decision. And the role of like information technology in the management of global logistics, purchasing, and operations management. And of course, like, should the company manage global supply chain itself? Should it outsource? So again, it's like do it ourselves internally or just outsource it externally. So these sorts of questions will always appear in our decision making with respect to the operations management, the global supply chain management. So let's go straight to some main ideas here. Two value creation activities that become the major concerns are like production and supply chain management. Production and supply chain management, and how they could be performed internationally, right? The production and supply chain management. What are the main purposes? Of course, to lower the cost of value creation, to lower the cost and to add value. As always, right? So we want to lower the cost. We want to add value by serving the customers, by satisfying them more, and see the repeat purchases, and of course it will boost up our revenues and profit. So what is supply chain management? See, by definition here, supply chain management is the integration, the coordination of all related activities like logistics, purchasing, operations, and market channel activities. So it's like the integrated process. So supply chain management is definitely broader than operations management, because operations is part of the supply chain management by the integration of all related activities, like you could see on the screen. And again, coming back to the main stories here, production and supply chain management, they're closely linked. Because the firm's ability to perform definitely depends on this kind of thing, like the ability to produce high quality products, and also the supply chain management, how we we integrate and coordinate this kind of logistics, purchasing, the operations, and the distribution. Okay, so let's see some of them in more details. We begin with logistics and purchasing. And I think this is self-explanatory. Purchasing, you buy your raw materials, the spare parts, the components, and work in progress inventories. You purchase the materials to be processed. And then the logistics is part of the supply chain that see the keywords here, that plans, implements, and controls the effective flows and inventory of raw materials, the components, and the products used in manufacturing. So logistics is the, I think the whole design and implementation. So we design the the flow and inventory of those kind of things, like the raw materials, the components, the work in progress inventories, and also the products used in manufacturing. And we plan it, we implement, we control this kind of flow. We call it logistics. So of course, in the supply chain, in the value chain, that we have the inbound logistics, we have the outbound logistics that will be explained, I think, in subsequent slides. Okay, so once again, two major concerns here are the cost and the product quality. Right, so we want lower costs, as low as possible, or as efficient as possible, and we want increasing product quality, right? Product or service quality here. I think that's the strategic objectives, right? The major strategic objectives that we always see in any kind of corporation, especially in global companies. And we have here the upstream and downstream. So downstream, upstream, you could call it like the inbound, and downstream is the outbound. So look at the upstream supply chain. See suppliers and all the organizations and resources involved in the portion of the supply chain from raw materials to the production facility. So this is inbound logistics. You can imagine inbound logistics in the value chain system, from raw materials to the production facility. On the other hand, we have the downstream supply chain. So in the value chain, this is known as outbound, the outbound logistics. So it's like all the organizations involved in the portion of the supply chain from the production facility to end clients or end customers. The outbound supply chain or outbound logistics. If this is related to logistics, we call it outbound logistics. Okay. So the main idea here is of course, we want increasing revenues and consequently increasing or higher profit. And how to achieve that? Lower cost comes from increasing productivity, by the enhanced or increasing productivity, lower rework and scrap costs, lower warranty costs, and in general, we say that we want improved performance reliability. So at the end, we start from the improving performance reliability through increasing productivity, lowering costs, lowering warranty costs, and finally, this will achieve stronger revenues and higher profit. All right, so we have some specific, like issues or some techniques that have been widely known, like TQM, the total quality management. Total quality management, mainly adopted by the Japanese companies and also American companies during 1980s and 1990s. So the some famous names here, you could see the Edwards Deming, Joseph Juran, and Feigenbaum. So have the TQM and famous certification of program closely tied to the TQM is the Six Sigma. If you notice that the word Six Sigma here, it sounds very statistical, and that is true. Right? Six Sigma is part of the non-statistical. If you could imagine the put it here. Okay, in the normal distribution, right? In the normal distribution, we have the like z value, right? The z value of certain confidence interval. For example, for the normal distribution, there's some famous coefficients like 1.65 sigma. So this denotes a confidence interval of 90%. Then was it 1.96 sigma denotes a 95% confidence interval. Then 2.33, so it's missing. Okay, 165. What's that? 196, 233. Another famous is 258. So again, this denotes 90% confidence interval. This is 95. This is 98, and this is 99. So you could imagine like the z value of like 258 sigma. 258 sigma already denotes like 99% confidence interval. And you could imagine if we talk about 6 sigma, it's definitely 99.999. So many nines, right? You could imagine. Okay, so how many nines is that? Is to be precise, is like 99.99966%. Meaning that for every million product that we produce, we only allow for about 3.4 defect products. Defect products, so 3.4 out of a million. So it's really high quality control. So we call it like 6 sigma. So it's part of the total quality management, meaning that we have the strong quality control. The quality standard is so good. The control is so good, right? From the planning stage and to the production, and of course the monitoring and control. So we have only a few like defect products out of so many units produced. So 3.4 out of a million. And also another certification that applies internationally, the ISO 9000, for example. Of course, there are many other specific certification like GMP, right, the good management practices, and some other specific certifications to like different fields. Right, different fields will require different certifications and quality control standards or something. But also the famous one like 6 Sigma, the ISO 9000, will be acceptable everywhere in the world. It's like a certification effect on a product or on a company. Okay, then still within the same subtopic here, that strategy, production, and supply chain management. So if we want to lower costs and improve the product quality, two other objectives, right? The local responsiveness and quick response, right? Quick response to the shift in customer demand. Okay, the local responsiveness, the issue that has been discussed, has appeared in our discussion several weeks ago. Local responsiveness, whenever you go somewhere, you sell a specific product, the key question is, do you need to adapt? Do you need to adjust to the local taste, local requirements, and some other things related to the local responsiveness? And also the second point here is about the quick response to the shift in customer demand. Okay, so next, let me move to another question. So we are actually discussing and responding to many questions that we saw in the introduction slide. So next question, where to produce. You could produce that internally at home. You could go overseas. You produce in a certain country, or you produce in many countries. So there are many things to consider. So country factors, technological factors, and production factors. So let's look at the country factor. Country factor, I think we talked a lot about the political, economic, cultural differences. And of course, those differences will be reflected in different cost structure, of course the quality also, product quality, but also efficiency, cost structure and human capital as well. See here, skilled labor, supporting industries. You have the facilities or supporting infrastructure, and rules and regulations. And of course, the country factor will include also the exchange rate, the stability of the exchange rate, whether it's a hard currency or it's quite volatile, or some other things pertaining to the exchange rate of that particular country. Next factor, technological factor. What kind of technology is it that we are talking about? For example, here, if we have like technological constraints, in some cases, then we need to perform certain manufacturing activities only in one location, right? Because the technology is so specific, so specific and couldn't be found in maybe some other locations, or couldn't be replicated somewhere. Then we have to do the manufacturing activities in one location. But in other cases where technology is easily replicated, or could be done in by many countries, so this would make it like more feasible for our company to perform this kind of like manufacturing activities in multiple locations. Okay, so what are the characteristics of the manufacturing technology? The level of fixed costs, the minimum efficient scale, and the flexibility of the technology. So we'll see the first factor here, still within the technological factor, fixed cost. How big is the fixed cost? Like for example here, the fixed cost, maybe nowadays, the new technology, like the expensive technology will require a lot of like initial outlay, initial investment, like 5 billion, up to 5 billion to set up a state-of-the-art factory or plant to manufacture semiconductor chips. So it's so expensive at the initial outlay. So we couldn't spread the activities to many places, but rather we have no other choice but to focus or to set up this kind of manufacturing place or technology in one single location, right? Because the initial outlay is so high. But on the other hand, if the fixed costs are quite economical, right, quite efficient, then actually we could do it in many places. Like this one, like if we could manufacture in multiple locations, this could help us to avoid being too dependent on one location. That's true, and we diversify, right? We diversify our production facilities and also production capabilities in many places. So that would be, I think, safer actually if we could do it. But again, it depends on one of the factors, the fixed cost. If the fixed cost is relatively low or economical or efficient, then we could do it in multiple locations. So second factor here, if you look at here, the minimum efficient scale that we require. So if the minimum efficient scale is very high, meaning that the minimum production to be efficient is so high, then we have no other choice but to do it in like fewer locations, or maybe in a single location, or limited number of locations at least, right? Because the minimum scale to be efficient has been very, very large, very high. For example, you have to produce like maybe I don't know, like 5 million units to be minimum efficient. then if you spread the production location everywhere, it would be less economical, less efficient. So we have to focus on like limited number of locations or a single location. But on the other hand, if the minimum efficient scale is quite low, I mean, even by producing 500 units, it has been like minimum efficient, that we could split the production or spread the production everywhere, right, in many locations. Okay, and then flexible, the third one, flexibility of technology, flexibility of the technology. So how flexible it is, how flexible it is, like the manufacturing technologies that's designed to reduce the setup times for complex equipment, increase the utilization of individual machines through better scheduling, and improve the quality control at all stages of the manufacturing. So how flexible it is, right, to set up the equipment, right, to run in like full capacity, like full utilization, full capacity, and for the quality control. If this is flexible, then we could move to many locations. But if it's not flexible, then it's better to stay in a certain location or limited number of locations. So flexible manufacturing, again, allow the company to produce like a wider variety of end products at a unit cost at one time. Okay, so if we have like flexible manufacturing technologies, yeah, essentially we could again produce a wider variety of end products at one time. So it's better to do the mass production, because we could produce a lot of variety of the products at one facility or one location. See the second point here, like the adoption of the flexible manufacturing technologies could increase the efficiency and lower unit costs relative to what can be achieved by the mass production of the standardized output. So we want, right, this is, I think, the best case scenario. If we have a production facility or equipment or machinery that could produce in a mass number, like mass production, but is also able to produce a lot of varieties. That would be, I think, the best scenario if we could have that kind of technology, right? So we call it like flexible manufacturing technology. So the flexible, I think the definition of flexible in this context is our ability to produce like more varieties out of the same equipment or the same facility. And the famous term right now is like mass customization. Customization. So again, the flexibility here could refer to two things. The first one, which have like totally different meanings. The first one is how easy it is to set up and to control and everything. So if it's less flexible in terms of the setup and also the quality control, like the flexibility in terms of the ease with which we move the equipment or the production facility and the setup and everything. So the less flexible it is, the better it is to stay at one location, because it's so difficult to set up new production facility everywhere. So the more flexible it is, the higher the chance for us to build and run this kind of manufacturing technologies, manufacturing facilities everywhere. But if we talk about the flexibility in terms of mass customization, meaning that if we could produce in mass production fashion, but with a lot of varieties, it's better to stay. So we see a different meaning. Right? We are talking about the flexibility in terms of mass customization. It's better to stay at one place. You could produce a lot, the mass production, but you could customize them as well. You could customize the product. So you have mass production, but you could make a lot of varieties. Just imagine if you have this kind of whatever you're producing, maybe luxury products. This is the easiest to imagine, right? Luxury products, you could make the mass production because you have like good materials, you have the good logistics and everything. You have good human capital as well to design, to produce, and by having this kind of like flexible manufacturing technologies, you could make a lot of varieties. So you could stay at one place rather than making the production in many places because it would be more efficient. You just make customization, the coloring, the design, some differences in like seasons and some other things. Not that difficult to customize, but you still could produce in a mass production fashion. Okay, so next factor is the production factor. So we see this one, the first one, country factor, then technological factor that we just discussed, and the third one is production factor. So production factor here, talking about product features, locating production facilities and strategic roles for production facilities. So what is the first one, the product features? What is the value to weight ratio? See the value, how valuable is the product or the equipment or manufacturing facilities or something to the weight ratio. If the value is much higher than the weight ratio, then of course, see the example here, the electronic components and pharmaceuticals, they have a high value to weight ratio, meaning that their value is really higher, much higher than their weight. Right? Value outweighs the physical weight. So so what should we do with this one? Right? If we have the high value to weight ratio, right? So by having this kind of like high value to weight ratio, should we concentrate on an optimum location, or could we bring everywhere? Of course, you can imagine if the value to weight ratio is high, then actually you could bring it everywhere, right? Because the value. Now, for example, this one, like the weights, they don't weigh very much, right? But they are so valuable. So with high value to weight ratio, actually you could. It's more likely that you bring the technology or the manufacturing facility to many other places. But another product feature that could influence the location decision is whether it serves universal needs. If it could serve like universal needs that are the same all over the world, then it's more efficient if we concentrate the production at an optimal location. So we don't need to have like many manufacturing facilities in many places, right? Where to build the facilities. So we could concentrate at an optimal location because it serves universal needs. But again, though, the two factors here, two major factors of product features. So whether value to weight ratio, how high it is. If the value to weight ratio is high, meaning that the value is much higher than the weight. See the examples there, pharmaceuticals that have the formula, they have this kind of equipment with, but the more important thing would be the pattern and the formula. Also electronic components and things, their values are much higher than their weights. So we immediately know that transportation costs would be quite low, right? Because the weight is not that large, not that high. Okay, so higher value to weight ratio enables us to, I think, to establish this kind of facilities in many other locations. But again, we look at the second point there, whether it serves universal needs. If yes, then it's better to concentrate at an optimal location. Then locating production facilities, the second one, right? Locating production facilities here. So we have concentrated and decentralized production favored. So see the country factors that we saw we saw just now and also in previous sessions. So if differences in political economy is substantial, if you do the the concentrated production is favored if the differences in political economy is substantial. But if there are few differences in political economy are few, then you could decentralize, right? You could build in many locations. What about culture? The same thing here. Culture, differences in culture would be substantial, or we would favor concentrated production in at a single location or at limited number of locations if differences in culture is substantial or are substantial. And also differences in factor costs, the same thing here. If the differences in factor costs are substantial, then we favor the concentrated production. And if there are few, then we could do the decentralized production. Trade barriers. So trade barriers, if we concentrate, then we only have like few trade barriers. But if we decentralize, we'll have a lot of trade barriers, because we have many sites and many countries for production. So we will face a lot of trade barriers, more substantial trade barriers. And location externalities, it will be important in industry, not important in industry. Exchange rate, if we concentrate on one or limited number of locations, then exchange rate problem would be more stable, but it would be more volatile for the centralized choice. And technological factors, fixed costs, high fixed costs for the concentrated production, lower for the decentralized. Minimum efficient scale should be high. If the minimum efficient scale is high, it's better to choose the concentrated production, because we need to achieve the economies of scale. So we need to concentrate on one location or limited number of locations, and the opposite one is this one. And if we have like flexible manufacturing technology, available flexible manufacturing technology where we could concentrate. Once again, the flexibility, the meaning of flexibility here is the mass customization. If we could produce mass production, mass products, but we could also customize at the same time there. So mass customization, then it's better to use the concentrated production, because we could save a lot of money, could achieve the economies of scale easier. And again, the product factors here, high failure to weight ratio. Okay, we could see it differently here. The high failure to weight ratio, meaning that actually the weight is relatively low compared to the value. So transportation costs would be relatively low, right? So actually, this could be both ways. It's not necessarily true, right? For this one, you could see it like differently, depending on the context. So if you have like high failure to weight ratio, meaning that actually the value is much higher than the weight. So on the one hand, we might agree that you could concentrate in one place, but on the other hand, you could see it from the transportation cost point of view. A higher failure to weight ratio means actually the technology or the production facility is much more valuable relative to its weight. So we could say that moving the technology in many other places could be economical, because the values are so high. So we could see it in, I think, both perspective. It could be high, it could be low. But if it serves universal needs, it's better to concentrate at one location or at a limited number of locations. All right, then the strategic roles of production facilities. Let's move to the strategic roles, like the third one here, see under the production factors. Strategic roles for production facilities. We have many terminologies here: the offshore factory, source, server, contributor, outpost factory, and lead factory. I think you could read in details by yourself as well. Just go through it, I think, quickly. Offshore is like producing component of finished goods at a lower cost than producing them at home in any other market. So we are doing the offshore. We try to produce or to get it somewhere, producing the components or the work in progress or the finished goods somewhere else because it has a lower cost. So what's the difference with a source factory? So source factory, again, what's the main difference between the source factory and the previous one, the offshore? See the second point here. Strategic role of the factory with the source factory is more significant than the offshore factory. So offshore factory, we just care about, we go somewhere because we could get the raw materials or the components or the work in progress or the finished goods at a lower cost somewhere else. But in source factory, it plays a more strategic role to drive down the cost in the global supply chain. So the managers will have like more decision-making power. Right, so essentially this has more authority, more strategic roles. So they also have strategic inputs into the planning, the process changes, logistic issues, customization, and newer designs when needed. So what about server factory? Server factory is even more substantial, more consequential here. So it's linked to the global supply chain to supply a specific country or regional markets around the globe. So have like server factory for a specific country, a certain country, or certain region, maybe East Asia, North America, Western Europe, Northern Europe, Africa, Central Europe, Eastern Europe, and so on. So server factory is even more substantial. Its presence is even more consequential. A contributor factory, also the same thing here, serve a specific country or world region. But the main difference between contributor factory and server factory is that the contributor factory has maybe more responsibilities for product and process engineering and development. So this factory is involved in the engineering and development. And here this one, contributor factory even could compete with the global, with the firm's home factory. So they could, for example, they have a contributor factory in like Far East, like East Asia, and although it's like a factory, part of the division, part of the factory of the headquarters, but actually they could compete with the headquarters in terms of like design, the ideas and everything. Maybe because that region is so powerful, so resourceful as well, with a lot of like world-class competition, with different setups, different types of customers, and so on. So it's like as if they operated by their own, authority and decision-making power, and something like that. Outpost is like intelligence gathering unit, so it's a bit different here. So it's intelligence gathering. It's more about the information collection, but of course, it could also function to fill in production. right? It could also operate as like server, remember the server factory offshore as well. But again, I think the original function of the outpost factory would be for intelligence gathering unit. But again, it could also do the filling production and so on. Lead factory. Lead factory is see the word lead here is intended to create new processes, products, technologies that can be used throughout the global firm. So it's like leading in the, I think, research, design, cutting edge production techniques, right? The tools and techniques and so on. So given the lead factory, the major role in setting the high quality, high bar for the firm to like provide like goods and services to customers, it should be located in an area where highly skilled employees can be found. If you know a specific place with a lot of like IT people or some manufacturing or engineering prowess or something, then we want to be located there. Right? For example, if you have a lot of engineers who are good at making engines, jet engines or whatever engines, coating technology and everything. So we try to make a lead factory there, maybe very close to research institutes or universities, right? That's why there are a lot of lead factories that would find Silicon Valley to be a very attractive place because we could have a lot of talents and there are a lot of like research institutes and also top universities there. So lead factory, like with the new processes, products, technologies. Okay, so all kinds of like the names, terminologies there. Although there are many more, but these are the famous names right now. So let's move on to the hidden costs of foreign locations. Could be hidden costs. What are the hidden costs? Like high employee turnover, shoddy workmanship, poor product quality, low productivity. For example, right? Examples of some hidden costs of foreign location, right? If we don't really understand, the mentality of the cultural system and everything, there will be a lot of turnover, and then workmanship could be quite like unstandardized. Sometimes good, sometimes not. Poor product quality and also low productivity. Okay, so the next one is next question that we saw in the introduction slides. So we make or we buy, right? We make or we buy. Make or buy decision. Okay, so could be strategic, could be seen in strategic and also operational levels. At the strategic and operational levels, strategic level is of course long term, and operational level is more short term. What are the issues here? Product success, specialized knowledge, and strategic fit can lead to item make or produce decision. Okay, and what else that will lead to the making by yourself and make decision? Specialized design, or production skills and equipment, reliable alternative are very scarce, and some other factors that would lead to the make decision. Okay, so product success, specialized knowledge, and so on. So let's look at the go straight here. So favoring a make decision. So we have two decisions, like the make or to buy. If, these are the factors that favor a make decision, like quality control, proprietary technology control and excess capacity, limited suppliers, assurance of continuous supply, and industry drivers. You can see here, maybe you could discuss quickly from here. If you have a quality control problem, if quality control is really vital, really pivotal to your to the company, to the factory, then of course it's better to make it internally, not necessarily internally, but make it by yourself, by the company. And what proprietary technology? If the technology is proprietary, it's very important to keep it confidential. Of course, we don't want to share the proprietary technology with our suppliers or other stakeholders, because it's very, very, very pivotal. It's the very key to the success of the company. And then we want to maintain control, and we have like excess capacity. We still have excess capacity. Why should we buy? It's better to maximize, to work at the full capacity, but still have the excess capacity. So it's better to make. And if we have like limited suppliers, then we don't have other choice but to make by our company, by ourselves as well, because we have limited suppliers. So you can imagine why, for example, like Apple is making its own chips right now. Of course, first they have the proprietary technology, very fast, much faster than its competitor, I guess. But also, they know that if they run out of chips because they have to compete for the chips, then they couldn't capitalize on the increasing demand for tablets, for mobile phones, laptops, and some other electronic equipment. The limited suppliers will lead us to make decision also. Then assurance of continual supply. This is what's happening. This is what's happening to the chips industry, and there are a lot of like car manufacturers, electronic devices, including like video games. They run out of chips because they don't have like the continual supply of the chips, and they will lose out to other companies that are more ready with better inventory of the chips, or if those competitors could make chips by themselves. So industry drivers, right? The industry drivers that would affect the make decision. Okay, so what about buy decision? Okay, what could affect the buy decision here? Okay, naturally, if those factors that we discussed before are showing the opposite direction, so it's better to make a buy decision. For example, if there's no excess capacity, you have run in the full capacity. We don't have any excess capacity. Maybe it's not realistic to make more, right? To use the make decision, because you are running in a full capacity. You don't have the excess capacity to make more. So I think it's more pragmatic, more realistic to consider a buy decision. Okay, so just look at the previous factors. If they go to the opposite direction, then maybe we should consider the buy decision. And then with the so the next set of decisions follow logically from the path in the figure. You can see figure here. So you can see this kind of like factors that would favor a buy decision. Whether you have a lack of expertise, multi-source policy, non-essential item. See many factors here. Non-essential item, small volumes, supplier competencies, lack of expertise, multi-source policy, and some other factors that are opposite to the previous factors that we discussed. And we should consider the buy decision. See some examples here. If the global firm has minimal restrictions on which firms or companies it can source raw materials and components, then buy decision is more likely. because our sourcing production, also increases the likelihood that other more suppliers will be used or can be used. If we don't have any restrictions, then we could consider the buy decision. We could buy from many suppliers, maybe better varieties, better comparisons, and the suppliers are competing also. Right? For example, when Apple is deciding whether to buy the AMOLED screen, whether it has to make by itself or just buy it from Samsung or LG or something. So although those companies are competitors, right? The severe competitors, but in terms of the raw materials or something, we still could buy from those competitors, right? Because it's still more efficient. And maybe those, for example, the screens are not really the major competitive advantage to Apple, right? Because it has other technologies like the ecosystem, the safe ecosystem, or system and everything. So they are not seeing the screen, like the AMOLED screen, as the major competitive advantage. That's why it's still okay to buy even from our competitors. Then if the firm lacks the needed expertise, we don't have the expertise, then we have to buy. Or actually, we could pursue the expertise, but it would consume our resources. So it's better to focus our resources on some key competitive advantages rather than making everything by ourselves. Right? We are thinking economically and also pragmatically, right, in the industry. Supplier competencies, if they're more competent, it's better to consider buy decision. And if the volumes are small, what should we make by ourselves? Right? It's better to outsource, to buy from other companies. All right. I think we'll continue with the global supply chain functions. See the function, I think we saw it earlier also: logistics, purchasing, and distribution strategy. The supply chain is again integrated function of the logistics, purchasing or sourcing, and distribution. Okay, and global, start from logistics here. There's some issues. They're always interesting. The distribution center management, inventory management, the packaging and materials handling, transportation, and reverse logistics. So we look at each of them quickly. Global distribution center, a warehouse. See, the distribution center, I mean, this is a facility that will customize products for delivery to many places, maybe to worldwide wholesalers or retailers. So it's like distribution center. It could be located anywhere. Maybe at one particular place, it will function as again the center for the customization of products before their delivery to wholesalers or retailers all over the world. Okay. Yeah, some issue here. So it's not only passive storage. In the past, maybe we call it like a warehouse, which was quite passive. But nowadays, it also involved the strategic assortments processing. So we call it like distribution center. It's like the customization is there, the assortments, the processing. So it's more meaningful, more consequential than a mere warehouse. So DC is at the center of the global supply chain management, the distribution center, because it's at the center, right? The products coming in and products coming out. They're doing this kind of like customization, assortment, distribution, and things. Okay, so it's like in the center of the whole process. That's why it should be located strategically in the global marketplace. because once again, it's the center, product coming in, products coming out from the distribution center. What about inventory management? And this has been discussed everywhere in accounting, finance, in operations, of course, also in some other engineering, right? The industrial engineering and something. So inventory management, again, we have a dilemma. If we have the low inventory management system, like just-in-time inventory or economic order quantity, we could save a lot of money. Right? The maintenance costs, the handling, security, and some other expenses, costs and expenses that we could save by lowering our inventory level. This is I think at the one hand. On the other hand, the low inventory management system could be detrimental, especially if suddenly we find that the demand is skyrocketing. There's huge boost in demand that could actually become the opportunity for our company to increase production, to sell more, to earn more profit. But if we don't have like inventory, or the coming of the inventory is not punctual enough, then we are losing the opportunity to capitalize on the increasing demand because we don't have the inventory to produce more. Packing and material handling. So we have a lot of level. Like primary packaging is the packaging of the product, immediate packaging of the product. Secondary packaging is the case lot packaging, so to contain several primary packages. And of course, the third level would be the transit packaging. So it's like in the transportation, like in the car, in the trucks. Transportation, movement of anything here, raw materials, work in progress, finished goods throughout the global supply chain. Also important issue, what kind of transportation? Using air transportation, land transportation, or water transportation or anything. So of course we try to find the transportation that is as efficient and effective as possible. Reverse logistics is the process of planning, implementing, and controlling flow of raw materials, work in progress, and finished goods, and related information from the point of consumption to the point of origin. So it's like the reverse logistics. So we do the planning, implementing, controlling from the end customers or at the point of consumption to the point of origin, production and the idea, to recapture the value. So we capture the value or proper disposal. We capture the value of proper disposal. So we doing the reverse logistics. How to deal with the disposal, right? Whether we still can get something from it, what kind of information we'll get from that point, right? The consumption and then the disposal, and we could send back the information to the production facility, and even to the engineer that will revise the ideas, will improve things, and so on. This is why you have newer versions from 1 year to another. We always have newer versions of products, and I think one of the key ideas, the key inputs to always have this kind of updated versions every year is the reverse logistics. We get a lot of information and learning from the use of the product and also the disposal. So global purchasing, now we have several levels here. Level 1 is domestic only. Levels 2 and 3 are international purchasing. So look at this one. Level 2 is engaged in international purchasing activities. So we buy raw materials, work in progress, or finished products from other international other countries or other international companies. Level 3 is deeper, right? Not only activities, not only international purchasing activities, but also the overall supply chain management strategy, right? Part of the supply chain management, global supply chain management. Level 4 and 5 are more global purchasing. We buy it everywhere. So international purchasing are more limited in the sense that we think we have like a certain country or a certain region that becomes the the norm or the common practice for our purchases. But global purchasing means we don't care about the country boundaries anymore, and they are integrated across worldwide locations. And what about level, the highest level, level 5, integrated across, sorry. Yeah, integrated across a worldwide location and also functional groups. So in level 4, we are integrated across the worldwide locations, but the each function, managerial function, might have their own purchasing activities. But for the level 5, it's like the integrated, the purchasing activities are global, integrated toward the world, and also across the functional groups, meaning that there's no silo anymore between each managerial function. All right, so the decision here is that we have this kind of decision making. See, the statistics shows that the roughly 35% of the purchasing in global companies is internal and 65% external. Right? So internal or external. So the first question, internal or external, and next decision is where to purchase, is domestic or global. Okay, so I think we can see this one. Some terminologies here. Outsourcing. So we buy goods and services from one of its suppliers that produces them somewhere else. Outsourcing, right? We are buying from somewhere else, maybe a specific source that produces them, whether domestically or globally. So if we see the name insourcing, insourcing is quite clear, self-explanatory. It means that we don't outsource, and instead we produce internally. That's why we call it insourcing. Offshoring, I think we saw the word before, the offshore facility. So we buy goods and services from one of our suppliers that produces them somewhere globally. The outsourcing is more a target place. There's a target place, a targeted place, targeted country. Also offshoring anywhere globally outside the company's home, outside the home country. Well, offshore outsourcing, actually quite similar. It's quite confusing. The two terminologies here. We have offshoring and offshore outsourcing. We could buy goods and services from our suppliers in a country other than the one in which the product is manufactured or the service is developed. So it's like we could produce it somewhere, manufacture it somewhere, but we buy the components, work in progress, inventories, and so on from another country altogether. Nearshoring is, see the word here, nearshoring. So we transfer information technology, business or information technology processes to suppliers in a nearby country. Often one that shares a border. So it's that nearby country. So we share, we transfer the information technology processes. We could share this kind of data or information with the suppliers, especially in a adjacent country. So while the nearshoring is not a purchasing activity itself, but it involves this kind of a global external purchasing. And co-sourcing, I think this is the most tied in our relationship here, because we use our own employees and also those of the supplier to perform like certain tasks, maybe to conduct research, market research, what's that, the operation research as well. That's also possible. Operation research, market research, all kind of certain tasks like data collection and so on. Yeah, so for mutual benefits, it's like somehow it's like a joint effort, like joint joint work as co-sourcing. I would call it co-sourcing. Okay, and yeah, managing global supply chain. I think we saw it before. The keyword is again cost reduction and higher quality. So you can see here, small reduction in cost can have like substantial impact on profitability. See an example here. If a firm has revenues of 1 million with a return on investment of 5%, material costs are about 50% of revenue. So it's like the cost of materials is about 50% of revenues. So we could see that by reducing material costs by 3% only, the company could increase its profit by 15,000. Right? So see the story here. We have two choices, right? Increasing sales revenue by 30% or lowering the material cost by 3%. Of course, this one is easier. Right? Lowering material cost by 3% alone could increase the profit by 15,000. And lowering material cost by 3% is definitely easier than increasing revenues by 30%. Right? Okay, and the inventory here, I think we came back to the previous story, just-in-time inventory. I think we quite understood it. Just-in-time means we order inventory just in time, so it's near the lowest level possible, maybe near zero. So whenever the inventory is closing to a certain level, then we do the ordering. Maybe you could use some combination with economic order quantity, or yeah, some other inventory management techniques. So what are the advantages here? Speeding up inventory turnover, reducing the maintenance holding costs, improve product quality as well indirectly, and could reduce the amount of working capital. Once again, what's working capital? Working capital is current assets. If we say net working capital, this is current assets that have deducted current liabilities. But essentially, if you hold more and more inventories, we need to finance it. We need to fund the purchases of inventories, maybe from the short-term loans, okay, or long-term loans could work as well. But essentially, we need more working capital, right? Because we need higher current liabilities. So by having lower and lower inventory, we could save a lot of working capital and could direct the money for other more productive purposes. Disadvantages: we don't have buffer inventory. So if there's a sharp increase in demand that we could have capitalized on by selling more, we don't have that. We couldn't harness the opportunity because we don't have enough inventory. Okay, I think then the next one is the information technology. The role of information technology, of course, with this kind of technology, we could provide information quickly to our suppliers and also to our distribution center. For example, the products are going to the distribution center in Korea. From, let's say, from the United States, we know where the products are right now. Maybe it's in Hawaii, or in some transit places. Then we could forecast a more accurate fashion when the final products will arrive at the destination. But on the other hand, with respect to the inventories, we could also see real time, right? In real time, how much inventory we are having right now, how much we need for the next batch of production and something. So we could make better planning, right, with inventory, when to buy, what is the economic order quantity that we have to achieve to reorder and something like that. So we could give a lot of information also to our partners. For example, if you have the airlines business, you're flying the jet engines, or the information about the engines and the whole, actually the aircraft are available real time to the manufacturers of the engine and the aircraft. So they will see if there are any updates required, any repair, any service required, and so on. Some terminologies here. Some of them are quite popular already. The EDI has been known, I think, for maybe more than 2 decades. Electronic data interchange. So we do the data interchange with other companies, with our suppliers, our distributors, our marketers, and so on. So the data interchange, right, the sharing of data. And we have the more let's say integrated system called the ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning. So it's the integrated planning and control system, which includes related, supply chain related subsystems, and the MRP, materials requirements planning, and other things, right? The ERP is again the enterprise, the integrated planning and control system. Some other terms, newer for terms like CPFR, the planning, forecasting, and replenishment. So the planning, forecasting, replenishment, I think this essentially, we built this on the top of the ERP, right? The more advanced version beyond the ERP. Vendor management of inventory. This is related to inventory management, obviously. And warehouse management system. This is related to warehouse. So all of them should be integrated in a enterprise, like resource planning, the ERP system, right, of a company. All right, with the again information technology, I think we could plan better, could monitor again our suppliers, our inventories, and also the work in progress, and also the finished products, the inbound logistics and outbound logistics that we could monitor better. And especially with the emergence of blockchain, blockchain is a decentralized ledger, meaning that if we have a blockchain system, right, with our suppliers, or with the outbound logistics, with the marketers, distributors, the wholesalers, the retailers, we could see, the chain of activities, a chain of purchases, updates, repairs, and everything, where the data are shared everywhere. So it's a decentralized ledger. So every entity, every company involved in the chain of activities could see the series of activities. So it's not maintained by a single server in the headquarters, but this is shared with many many computers in the same blockchain. Right, so it will be very fast. We could see it like real time, right? What's happening, and if one of the entities is changing something, is ordering something, is paying something, all of the activities are perfectly shown and recorded in the blockchain. So again, this brings a lot of benefits, of course. Could synchronize all the data and transaction across the network, as long as the entities are involved in the chains of activities, all the entities could see what is happening there. We could do live, real-time digital ledger of all transactions, all movements, all changes, all payments, right? So we couldn't deny anything because the information is widely available to all participants in the network or in the blockchain. But of course, it has some risk to it, right? It has the downside of the technology for sure. But yeah, I think it brings a lot of benefit. So finally, the global supply chain coordination, right? The shared decision-making opportunities. So this is not, yeah, it's a joint consideration, right? Joint consideration. So we call it shared decision-making, but I think it's not, it doesn't mean that the decision-making is made by everyone in the supply chain coordination, but it just simply means that it has like joint consideration of this kind of replenishment, inventory holding costs, collaborative planning, cost of different processes, frequency of orders, batch size, product development, and some other related things. So we could make like integrated, coherent, efficient, and effective global supply chain. So everybody is involved in the sense that they provide information, they give consideration and all other things. But it doesn't mean that everyone could make a decision here. So see, this point is very important. Sure, decision making is not joint decision making. It's just I think the joint consideration of many information and considerations that should be taken into account when the company is making a decision. Okay, I think some peripheral issues here. That 6 operational objectives to achieve the operational integration and collaboration, responsiveness, variance reduction, and inventory reduction. I think they are quite self-explanatory. And some other. The 4th one is shipment consolidation, quality, self-explanatory, and life cycle support. I see the 6 factors there. Responsiveness, variance reduction, inventory reduction, shipment consolidation, quality, and life cycle support. Interorganizational relationships. Here, I think we go straight to the figure here, the 2 figures. So this is the upstream, right? The inbound logistics here, inbound relationship. So we have 3 levels here. This from vendor to supplier to partner. The lowest level of relationship, we call it vendor. We simply buy something from the vendor. We don't have a close relationship. But if we cooperate further, then we call it like supplier. And of course, if we work closely, we call it partner. See, higher coordination, higher integration, and higher relationship focus. On the other hand, here the vendor is like low coordination, low integration, and only transactional focus and transactional style. On the other hand, the outbound, right, the downstream, the outbound relationship, the lowest level of relationship is called buyer, and then higher is called customer, and finally the highest level of relationship is called client. So higher coordination, higher integration, and relationship focus. So we have that 2 sides of the story: the inbound relationship and the outbound. So different names, different levels of relationship. Of course, we have like allocation by resources, like 20% of effort to the lowest level, like vendor, and then 30 to the next level, and 50% is to the strongest relationship. Right? So 20% to vendor, 30% supplier, and 50% partner. On the other hand, for the outbound, 20% of its effort should be allocated, should be spent to the buyer category, 30% to customer category, and 50% to the client category. So the higher the level, the more the effort or the resources should be allocated to that relationship. Yeah, I think that's all about the global supply chain management. It's a big topic, and I think it's also a specific course by itself. But we have seen, I think, the major issues and also cutting edge developments in the field. And I think that's all for this week topic. Thank you, and see you next in the next module.